percentage of your raving fans looks a certain way, go for them. Spend most of your time, effort, and money serving them, understanding them, going after them. And then take a small percentage. If you know that the same value you deliver to a certain demographic can be expanded, take a certain percentage of your time and your marketing budget to go after that other segment. But follow the breadcrumbs. They'll never lead you the wrong way.
Such great advice. I appreciate that. Because I know sometimes we think that, we may have a certain idea in our mind, and yet execution of it, the results are truly, they show up differently. And, and maybe that really is where your talent, your voice, where that leaves. So I love that advice, following the breadcrumbs. Now, you talked about doing lives. Is there, and I hear people ask this, should I be doing it at a certain time? What should I say? How do I, do I wait, or, do I have to have it all perfectly scripted out? Should I record it first, or just naturally go on and do live? What kind of advice do you have there for somebody who's just kind of breaking into social media marketing and they're maybe scared to death to do that first live? How do you answer all of those questions?
When people are just starting out with a live strategy, I love to have them presented pre-recorded.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. You are on The Cheap Mama Life with Brenda Kilhoffer, and I am your Cheap Mama. I am so excited for today's show. I've been looking forward to sitting down with Angela Heath for quite some time. She is the founder of TKC Incorporated. And today she's going to talk about how those of us that have, especially service-based businesses, how we can shortcut getting noticed out there in the public space. So I'm going to give Angela a few minutes to introduce herself, and then we'll get started on talking about our topic today. Angela, how are you today?
I am fabulous. Hello, Brenda, and thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm looking forward to this conversation also. And I know that you are the cheap mama, but I'm pretty cheap too. I am always looking for shortcuts and bargains, more so when it comes to my business than probably in my personal life. But I'm always looking for that opportunity. So in my company, I have moved with the flow in order to capture some of those shortcut opportunities. And that's what I'd love to share with your audience.
Awesome. So tell everybody a little bit about TKC. I know you teach people how to speak publicly and get noticed. And you work with a lot of women. So let's give the audience a brief background of what you do and why they ought to listen to you when you teach them how to shortcut things. And I love that you'll do it at a low cost.
Absolutely. So with TKC Incorporated, I help mature experts, typically people around 40 something, to get into self-employment. And I've been doing that for a number of years. But with the pandemic, this is what happened. I started helping companies to bring their operations into the digital world, just out of the goodness of my heart, helping people to manage their online conferences and master classes and things like that. And then one day, one of my customers said, "You're really good at this. You should offer this as a service in your business." And Brenda, I thought, aha, I've got a set of skills that I've only used for my own company, but now it could potentially become another service opportunity in my business. I put up a sales page in 2 days, and in 5 days, I got my first 2 customers. So I shared that because for service-based businesses, we don't have to leave the core of who we are, but we need to be ready to take advantage of those cheap opportunities that pop up where we can actually expand our business. So now, not only do I help people with figuring out what they want to be when they grow up and establishing their companies, but also helping them understand how they can use public speaking and leverage it to grow their companies.
I love it. And I love that you took an idea. I think that's one of the things that I know I encourage my team and folks around me is, man, when you get those ideas of inspiration and act on it. And you obviously are an action woman, taking steps right away when you had a great idea to implement it and prove it fruitful. So I love that, sometimes we stop short, like, oh, it's a great idea. Oh, I can't do that. And I love that you're somebody who takes action. So what advice do you have for the listeners that want to get noticed, that have an idea or are already doing something at a high level and just don't feel like enough of the world is seeing it?
Okay. This is what I found, Brenda. Over the years of working with mature experts, they've got what it takes. They can get the job done. But oftentimes they're in the background, they're in the shadows because they're putting themselves out there, but they're not being seen, heard, or noticed. And that is the key for a business that really grows because that business owner is being very visible. So a couple things that all of us can do that cost us no money is to craft our message and take it live. Social media is free and we can take our messages live at any point. But I don't advise people to necessarily do like I see happening so often. People are walking down the street and they pull their cell phone out and they start teaching and training. Nothing wrong with that from time to time. Mm-hmm. But as a business builder, we need to be very strategic about that. And every message that we are putting out there needs to reflect what our brand values are. And it also needs to point people back to our offers and our bottom line. So I always tell people, take advantage of live, but do it smart.
Awesome. I know, I love that you share that, because sometimes I just think people get out there and they just, whatever is on their mind, whatever they're thinking right then and there, oh, let me just go blast this out on social media. And sometimes that really isn't anybody else's business, and it doesn't help, portray your brand. So you had talked about what is your brand, and how does somebody go about identifying what that brand message is for them and crafting and creating that?
Right. So the way I describe your brand message is for you to first start with you. What is the core? What is the essence of who you are? It's that place of convergence where your skills, your passion, and the market all collide. The market has to be there. So when we really begin to understand that, and we've spent some time doing the research around, okay, so this is the great offer that I have. Who wants it? Who is suffering that I can help? And understanding those pain points of your clients, potential customers, understanding how you are unique and how you wrap that solution up in your uniqueness and serve it into the marketplace. From there, you then develop your brand message and you make certain decisions about your brand. There are some people's brands, they have decided that they want it to be very casual, very laid back. There are more people who may say, hey, I want my brand to be a little more formal because I'm going for a certain type of customer. So you make certain decisions about what you want your brand to express in the marketplace. What does your target market want from you? And then what are the values that you always want to impress? Like for me, one of my big values is that I will never promise you anything that I won't deliver. And so I always offer, we stay with you until you succeed guarantees. I don't care how long it takes. If you buy a 6-week course from me and you come back at week 7 and you said, look, I did the work, but I'm just not getting there, you can stay with me forever, because it's important for us as a brand to deliver what we promise. So you have to make your own decisions about how you want your brand to appear in the marketplace and craft messages that support that vision.
Awesome. I love that. Now, that brings me to a question. So when I'm deciding who my target audience is, should I be thinking about, okay, this is ideally who I want to serve, or should I maybe look at my metrics, especially if I've already been very active on Facebook or on social media or Instagram, and I know I look at my metrics, I'm like, wow, I've got like 60% women that follow me and 40% men, and looking at the age range, what if I look at that age range and I see that I'm only appealing to, I don't know, let's say, for instance, that I really wanted to appeal to first-time moms and young, folks maybe in the 18 to 24 range. But when I look at my metrics, maybe I have like 3% in that category. And the vast range is the 40 to 64. Should I then shift my focus in my business, or should I shift my message? What would you recommend?
You know what I would say? Success leaves breadcrumbs. Follow the breadcrumbs. So if you look at your metrics and you find that a certain percentage of your raving fans looks a certain way, go for them. Spend most of your time, effort, and money serving them, understanding them, going after them. And then take a small percentage. If you know that the same value you deliver to a certain demographic can be expanded, take a certain percentage of your time and your marketing budget to go after that other segment, but follow the breadcrumbs. They'll never lead you the wrong way.
Such great advice. I appreciate that. Because I know sometimes we think that, we may have a certain idea in our mind, and yet execution of it, the results are truly, they show up differently. And, and maybe that really is where your talent, your voice, where that leaves. So I love that advice, following the breadcrumbs. Now, you talked about doing lives. Is there, and I hear people ask this, should I be doing it at a certain time? What should I say? How do I, do I wait, or, do I have to have it all perfectly scripted out? Should I record it first, or just naturally go on and do live? What kind of advice do you have there for somebody who's just kind of breaking into social media marketing and they're maybe scared to death to do that first live? How do you answer all of those questions?
When people are just starting out with a live strategy, I love to have them presented pre-recorded. Only because if they're really, public speaking can be just, the second most feared thing after death or something. So it can be so nerve-wracking for people that you don't want to put them out live and they can't even think. So for someone who's really filled with fear, first they go to the mirror and they practice, and then they record and they study that. And they can put that out as a recorded live. And once they feel comfortable with that and they get feedback from that, and then they can start to do their own live. But in terms of being scripted, I don't believe that you should be so scripted that you need a teleprompter. I think you need prompts to stay on message, but you also have to be flexible enough to listen to what your audience wants. So if you're on, say, a Facebook Live and you've got something crafted that you want to say, but all of the questions are coming in talking about what they thought your subject was, because maybe for them, your headline was not clear. You have to respect the audience. And so you have to go with what they want. And if you can, segue back to that. But when I think about, people who might be filled with fear, I also recommend they go to Clubhouse, because Clubhouse, nobody can see you. They see an avatar of you or a photo of you. So they only hear your voice. I can also recommend podcasting, because many times it's when people are looking at you that it may stir up your nerves. But if there's no one there, you should feel a lot more relaxed, and you can do that and practice and then put it out there, right?
Absolutely. And so often folks, that I think podcasting is a great example. Sometimes people, maybe they're not comfortable with a big monologue or something like that. And yet, just like, you and I sitting here having a conversation today, the audience still gets to see who you are and who I am through everyday conversation that maybe that person's way more comfortable with. So tell me a little bit more about Clubhouse. I'm intrigued. How does somebody start being successful at Clubhouse?
So Clubhouse, as many of your viewers probably have heard, is an audio-only app. Right now, it's only available for owners of iPhone, but they said that Android is coming in a few weeks. I don't know if it's going to be in a few weeks, because that is heavy lifting. Okay, so you get on the app and they actually have these rooms and they have this hallway. It's like a little community. And you're looking at your phone and you can see this hallway and you can see the title of rooms where people who have the same interest are all together discussing something. You can join any room you would like to join. When you join, you're actually seated in the audience. But there's a little button down there. If you have something to contribute, bing, you raise your hand. And then they can bring you up to the stage. Once you're on the stage, you can ask a question, you can make a comment, you can add to the conversation. So I tell people, when you first get on, just like everything else, you must do your research. So go listen, see what people are talking about. Visit the rooms where experts are talking about your subject matter. Once you start to feel a little bit more comfortable, then I say choose the people you want to follow and maybe have some relationships with. Go over to Instagram and follow them. Send them a message and say, hey, I loved your show. Or send them a message and say, hey, I'm trying to start my own room. Would you be willing to, they call it modding for moderation. Would you be willing to co-mod with me? You just invite them. I mean, it's all about developing these relationships. And honestly, it can be slow if you don't spend a lot of time on the app. It's almost like I told someone, it's kind of like the wild, wild west in terms of people get on the app sometime and they stay there for hours.
Wow.
And people do something called tucking them in. Like if they're on the stage and they actually fall asleep, then they move them back to the audience. So just go and learn and, practice your elevator pitch, which you should be doing anyway, right? and take those opportunities. You're an expert. If you're in the service industry and you've got a level of expertise, it needs to shine. So don't be afraid to get to the microphone and to express your opinion. And people are very kind there most of the time and welcoming. But it's just like society. You got a little bit of everything there, but it's really fun.
Absolutely. Yes. I've been on there a couple different times and had an opportunity to be, a contributor to somebody else's room. And I have to confess, I haven't spent a lot of time there. So I think let's talk about that, because you mentioned, with all of it, with the social media, with Instagram, with all of those things, that you get in there and dive in and learn and spend time. So after we take a quick break, what I would love to hear from you as somebody who's highly successful using those platforms and teaching the platforms to others, I really want to learn how you, as I say, stop the scroll and really get in there and out of there to do business without social media becoming a huge distraction. So right after the break, we'll start in with that. And right now, listeners, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break to hear from our sponsor.
Hey, my people. This is Marcus from the Transform You Media Network. If you are enjoying the Cheap Mama life, I want to tell you about more content that is similar to what you are receiving right now. If you are the type of person that enjoy inspiration or insightful wisdom that takes you away from the junk that they are giving, the network is the place to be. You want to find more content like this over on our YouTube page, our Roku channel, or on Google Podcasts, Spotify, or Apple. Simply do a Google search, type in Transform You Media Network, or go over to our main website at transformyoubroadcast.com. That's transform the letter U, broadcast.com. See what we have to offer. We will transform your life and business.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the show. I'm Brenda Killhofer, and I'm your Cheap Mama. And I'm here with Angela Heath for our second half of the podcast today. She's with TKC Incorporated, and she has given us so many cool nuggets on how to just kind of get started into the social media marketing. And I know one of the things, there's a couple things we talked about right before break is one, how do you not get stuck in the scroll and the drama and everything else that's going on social media, and really make it a tool that works and grows for your business. And, the other thing too is, how do I take those people from being followers? Because Angela, I have a lot of folks that I sit there, they will watch every single video. You'll see, hundreds of viewers on a video, and yet the phone doesn't ring. They don't become customers. I know that, hey, some of those folks have been watching me for years. How do you take those people that are just out there in the social world at all and start to convert them into customers and, members of your team, for those of you that are in network marketing? What's the next step there?
Okay. So the key to moving people off social media onto your list, whether it is your email list or your text messaging list, is imperative. We cannot leave them on social media. So, of course, we need something to attract them. If you have a group, you should always offer some kind of lead magnet, something of real value that they want in exchange for their phone number and their email. Now, you don't want to make the phone number mandatory because that gets a little more personal for people, but everybody's used to exchanging their email for value. So you need something that is going to get them off social media onto your list. I tell people, if you're doing Facebook Live, as much as you can possible, have people register through Zoom and then take the program into your group. because that way you still capture their information. So everything you do, you start with, what is my free giveaway that is going to attract my ideal customer? And you might have two different things that you offer to people. And those people who dial in on that, they are really interested in your topic. So you then can nurture that relationship and begin to sell to them. The second thing is, I always tell people, don't be afraid to sell. Many people, including myself, when I started a group, I was just trying to get numbers, trying to get visibility, and I was giving away a ton of value, but I was never selling anything. So you've got to have a balance. You want to give maybe like 3 times more than you actually sell, but at some point, you've got to let your followers know. And you have products that you sell that can benefit them and help them. So don't be afraid to sell. But social media, for the most part, it really is about visibility. Because at some point, if people see us enough, they begin to trust us more. And then when we make our offer, they're more likely to buy from us. But truly, there are just a bunch of people who will never buy, and we know that.
Absolutely. Now, Angela, what about, let's just say I'm just getting started, or maybe I'm shifting from one career to another, and I want to get the message out there, and I don't have a huge following. Maybe I've only got a few friends, or maybe my friends, are all from a prior industry at work, and they're not my potential customer. Or maybe I've been in my business for years and I've burnt my, that old warm market is now, hey, we're done. How do I go out there and put a whole new group of people in front of me utilizing social media? What methods are out there for me to do that?
A couple things. Number one is typically, we have our go-to platform, right? So if you've been there, you don't want to abandon it.
Right.
If people are responsive, you don't want to abandon it, but you want to expand to maybe another platform. And if you don't have a social media team, I don't advise you to have more than 2 platforms that you spend your time on, because it can be a drain. And then, of course, Twitter to make any announcements, conferences, products, whatever it is. That I look at Twitter as primarily like a news feed. So move from one platform to the other. Don't divorce the first one that's successful, but begin to expand your market. And that's one reason why I'm telling people about Clubhouse, because if you get in before Android,
right,
you can get more established on that app before the floodgates open. Another thing I tell people to do, and we talked about it during the break, many people love to get on other people's stages, and that's fabulous, because then you can actually sort of exchange followers. I'm on your podcast, so I tell people, hey, check out her podcast. More of my followers come over and look at yours. Your followers are hearing me. That's a great thing. So do other people's stages, but don't forget to host your own, because if you are someone who needs to be seen, heard, and noticed, it's because of your expertise. And if you have the expertise, I tell people all the time, if you do something well, you need to speak something well. So you've got to get your voice and your message and your face out there before the public. And you can do that with your own stages. If you're just getting started, or even if you've been around for a while, one of the strategies that I still love is virtual summits. And I know everybody's doing them now. I've been doing them for years before COVID, and I've seen such a huge increase in summits. So there's a lot of chatter out there. But the thing about a summit is it just it helps us in so many ways. We get the raving fans, people who spend a lot of time there, they're very interested in it. We get potential partners. We should be developing partnerships with our speakers. We also elevate our thought leadership, and thought leaders, frankly, earn more money because we're hanging out with the leaders in the industry. And so people begin to look at us and say, wow, I didn't know that she was on that level, because of the people that you're hanging out with. They're still very effective, even though there's a lot of them happening, but you have to be strategic about it.
So how are we strategic? So I can have the greatest idea for a summit or, a boot camp or whatever we talk, whatever's there. And maybe I've been on other people's podcasts. Maybe I've done those things. How do I make sure that people know it's all out there? How do I then go about marketing it and making sure that that the word gets out and I bring in an audience?
One of the best things I think for businesses that happen as a result of the pandemic is more relationships have been formed all over the world. More affiliates have been formed. And by that, I mean, I've got a course to sell. And so I have a relationship with an influencer and I go and say, hey, I've got this course. I would love for you to help me sell it. And then they say, sure. And I say, hey, I'll give you 50%. And so they help me get that message out to their audience. And more people began to come to the event. And these are people that I wouldn't have reached on my own, but because I'm working through those relationships, people began to come to my event. The other thing that we can do is get some of those raving fans to be our affiliates. Those people who you see all the time, just go out to them and say, hey, Jane, I noticed that you've been to all of my master classes. You always comment. I appreciate you so much. I have a way for you to earn some income too. I've got this thing coming up. I would appreciate it if you share it with your friends. You can come for free and you can also earn some money. It's a way to give back to our audiences, especially if they are maybe struggling or they have their own business. And every business person should be looking for multiple streams, even if the stream doesn't seem very large, but you never know. One thing typically leads to the next. So get your raving fans. I tell this story, Brenda, about one raving fan who told her colleague about me as a presenter. That one person, she wasn't important. She didn't have a big title. She just told somebody, she's really good. You should talk to her. I made $310,000 from one referral. So it's important for us to know that everybody is an important person if they're a follower or a customer, and treat them that way.
Absolutely. I remember when I began real estate and I had one client that I had done, that I had worked really, really, really hard for. And I can tell you in that down market back in 2008, more than half of the transactions that I did when other agents weren't doing real estate were results of that raving fan getting out there and sharing my information. So that is absolute truth. So you had talked about making affiliates. Let's just say, I don't have a huge following. I've got some great people, some great content. I'm getting it on. Are you suggesting that I still charge for the summit, or are there other ways? Like maybe it's just maybe the collaboration alone, the sharing of the audiences, maybe advertising. Are there other ways to If I'm starting without a budget and I don't have the money to pay affiliates, what other suggestions are out there?
Well, you're not going to pay affiliates if you don't earn any money. Affiliates only get paid from what you earn. So there's no risk. There's no risk there. But whether or not to charge for a summit, it really depends on your topic, your audience, your budget, like you said. But you can offer free summits, right? I've done a summit before where I spent almost no money. I mean, I might have spent maybe a couple $100. I don't even think I spent $1,000. And I got a bunch of raving fans, right? I just did it all through social media. I didn't do any ads. I got maybe about 300 people on that. But the key to really earning income is the backside of the summit. People are mistaken when they think, oh, the upsell. That's not it. That's not it. Because only a small percentage of people, I don't care who you are going to buy your upsell. Now, if you're Oprah or Tony Robbins, yeah, large percentages.
Right.
But everyday people, it's going to be a smaller percentage, even if it's like 10%. Mm-hmm. That's a source of income. Do it. I'm not saying don't do it. But that's just the beginning. So in creating your entire strategy for your summit, you're going to have, and I teach this, how to create a book from the summit, because that is an authority play. If you have a summit with leaders in your industry, and now you have a book with leaders in your industry, what does that make you? A leader in your industry. And there's so many ways that you can do that. So after your summit, you should always have something where people can buy further, go further with you. What's the next step that they need? You think that through at the beginning, right? And so they can buy into the next step. You build that next step, outline it in advance, but you don't build it. You build the next step based on what your audience tells you during the summit. So you go back to all of that chat. What were the questions? What do they need to know? You're polling during your summit. You're asking questions. You're following it up with email questions. And you've got so much rich data for this follow-up product. And you make that available. And Brenda, these days we don't create something and throw it out there and hope somebody comes. We co-create with our audience.
Absolutely. No matter whether you're giving a in-person right there seminar, you're co-creating as you see how people are reacting. You see, if they're falling asleep, it's like, oh, maybe I need to do something different, right? You have to be. It's all about our audience. We don't last long in any field if we're not meeting the customer's demands,
Right.
And then the markets change. The market
changes constantly.
Why are some networking groups thriving today and other networking groups are not? I mean, you and I met at Happy Neighborhood Project. They're thriving because they were able to quickly pivot, offer an incredible worldwide online presence instead of making it hyper local. And now I get to work with somebody in Maryland, which is what I wanted to do anyway, because that's where I'm from. And you're working with somebody in Arizona. And because they pivoted, they listened to what their audience needed when COVID happened. And, the world's giving us so many different opportunities to shift and change and co-collaborate and offer new collaborations. And it's incredible.
It is. It's fun. I'm having a great time. And so really just paying attention to, the latest, greatest. So, that's something that I don't care if you've got a product or a service, you have to be ready to spot the trends. And if the trends make sense for your brand, I'm not saying keep following, the shiny object. I'm saying if it lines up with your brand, So for example, with Clubhouse, I noticed a problem there, a huge problem. And I said, okay, I can solve that real easily. So the problem is you can only communicate with the people you meet on the app through Instagram or Twitter. Most people do Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell them, DM me. You go over to Instagram, it's like 1 million DMs in there. You can't track that.
Right.
There's no way, right? So I'm creating a couple tools for people to track the conversations and connections. Is that off from who I am? No, because what I've been talking about is helping people to get seen, heard, and noticed for their expertise. I talk about shine all the time, and I have courses about shine. This is part of shine,
right?
Because that app, because it's new and because there's like some really strong, there are a lot of huge names on that app from the entertainment industry, titans in the business community that you can learn from, and people following them, you already know what they're interested in.
Right.
And if it aligns with your brand, then you can help those people manage their processes and understand. Like I said, you got to have a lead magnet. So this is my lead magnet for Clubhouse. Is exactly what they need, feeds right into my brand. And then I can tell them after that, okay, now you've got some contacts, conversations. What are you going to do with it? Let's shine with it. Let's get out there and get seen and heard and noticed for your expertise with what you have. Let me teach you how to do your summit, create a book. Let me show you about your signature program. It fits.
Absolutely.
It all fits.
Well, Angela, I just feel like what a blessing to have had you today on the show, on the podcast. And I feel like we got a whole course just in this podcast time today. And I really appreciate, and I know you've definitely made me think about looking at Clubhouse twice. I'm on there. I haven't spent a lot of time. I think I'm certainly going to dig in deeper. How do people get in touch with you? You know, I'm sure that, well, everybody that listened today had tons of great nuggets and got to write down some action steps to move forward. If they want to take that to the next step, how do they reach you?
You know, the best way to reach me, I would say they can go over to Facebook. I have a group called Public Speaking in Cyberspace. Because public speaking virtually is one way you shine. Mm-hmm. They can go there, or they can actually go to my website, tkcincorporated.com. It's tkcincorporated.com. And they can get on the mailing list because I've got some great courses that'll be introduced like in the next month or two.
Incredible. Thank you so much for being here today. Again, I just feel so blessed to have had the opportunity to have you on the show. I know that all of the ladies and any gentlemen out there listening to us today really are walking away with pure gold. You definitely have some incredible advice on marketing and shining out in the public. So I really appreciate it. I hope you'll come back another time and join us and share more.
And Brenda, thank you so much. When I went over to your website, I said, she's my kind of gal. It's making it work. Yeah. Because, you know, there's only two things we can do. We can decrease our spending and we can increase our earning, and you do both. And I admire that. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Angela. Have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you again.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Hope you enjoyed that episode of the Cheap Mama Life podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review right now if you haven't already, and hit that share button. Until next time.